Hey guys, Marshall here, and I want to welcome you to this video. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to plant a plant properly so it has the best chance of surviving. What I'll say is, across the board, whether it's a tree, a shrub, a flower, what I'm going to teach you guys today applies in every circumstance. So what we're planting today is a Japanese maple. It's a blood good. I love Japanese maples. They are amazing specimens. One thing I'll point out is that the location is super important for whatever you're planting. Every plant is gonna require a different amount of sunlight, a different amount of drainage. So you really wanna know what plant you're planting and some info about that plant. I know that this plant prefers filtered sun, filtered shade. So I've got it in a shaded area. It's gonna get some filtered afternoon sunlight, but not too much. So this plant is gonna love this particular spot. The house is behind me, and I have what I believe is the best face to this plant, facing the area where it's going to be seen the most. Whatever you're planting, in my opinion, every plant always has a best looking face. So I would really step back and make sure that you have the best face showing in the right direction. So with that being said, I'm gonna dig my hole. I do want to give space around the hole because it's gonna be important for this plant to have soft soil so that your root hairs can actually access as quickly as possible into the native soil. And so that's part of the reason why you want to give this plant plenty of room around its root ball. Oh, and hey, I just thought of one more thing. This shovel is a really good shovel for breaking through surface roots of other trees. A beveled shovel is not the best shovel for breaking through roots. If it hits a root, it's going to want to bounce off left or bounce off right. So this is a shovel that I prefer. You could probably find it at a Lowe's or Home Depot, but there's plenty of shovels out there that have a straight edge that when they hit a root, they're not going to let it pass by. It's going to sever that root, which is probably what's going to happen right now. All right, so I've got my hole marked. I'm going to move the tree carefully off to the side. We're going to get this soil. What I like to do is split the root out, make it a little easier to get all this dirt out of here. As you can see, I've got some roots that are coming up. Check those out. I mean, this shovel does an awesome job cutting those things. Whew. Okay, so I've got my hole dug. I did run into a really big root that's in the bottom of the hole. I'm not gonna let it stop me. This tree, whether it's planted on top of another root or not, as long as it has plenty of soil around that root, as well as on the sides of the root that's on the bottom, these roots and the root hairs are going to reach into that native soil. And it's going to grow, it's going to thrive regardless. So don't let, if you run into a really big root in your hole, don't let that stop you from planting it. So sometimes you have to give it a little love around here. You can loosen up depending on how tough the soil is. So you loosen it up. You want to get one hand, you want to carefully take your plant out. I like to tip it over sideways. You don't want to put too much stress on the crown here of the plant. You're going to slide it out very gently. And all of these root hairs, this thing's life has been inside of a pot. We want these hairs to grow into the native soil around it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna scratch up a lot of these root hairs. If it's really tough, you might have to get a shovel and break it up, but this is pretty good. Some of these hairs are getting off. You can break a couple if you need to. And there again, this just helps these roots penetrate into the new native soil. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, I go back and check my height. Okay, we're looking pretty nice here. I got the right face. Now, one thing I'm doing is I'm trying to plant about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch higher than the soil level that's at grade next to the plant, because you know there's a chance that over the next couple rainfalls this plant may settle just a hair. And where we're at here in South Carolina at the low country, in the low country, you know, you don't want anything to be too low because it's susceptible to being washed out. So I've got it just about a 1/2 inch high, and yeah, so we're gonna get this thing planted. All right, guys, so I've got my plant placed, and now I'm gonna kind of loosen up some of the soil. If you want to, you can add a couple handfuls of compost, but this is pretty decent native soil. So I'm just gonna use what's naturally here. You know, this plant typically coming from a nursery is gonna have a little bit of fertilizer mixed in, so you don't have to fertilize day one. I may pull a couple of these weeds. You know, some of them may end up turning into trees. So I don't really want these things in here. So I'm gonna pull these. Pull this one sucker off the tree. Beautiful. Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna start to get some of this soil back in here. I'm gonna keep it nice and loose as I break it up, but eventually I am gonna compact it a little bit to get the air pockets out of the sides. And I don't really mind if there's a little bit of leaves and pine straw that get mixed in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, this tree is amazing. It is gonna do everything that it can to survive. This thing wants to survive. And trees, plants, they're a lot like us. They need water, they need food, they need some sunlight. You give them those things, and they're gonna do really well. Let's get the soil in here. I like to kind of compact it along the way. Okay, guys. So I've got the soil compacted. I got all those air pockets out. I like the face. It's looking good. The last thing that I want to do is water. So if you have a hose that can't reach, grab yourself a big bucket. In my opinion, you can't really overwater on day one. Right now it's the summertime here, so it's hot, it's humid. This tree's gonna drink it up, no problem. So I'm gonna put a full, 4 to 5 gallons of water on here. I'm gonna let that soak in. Obviously the water is gonna naturally run off a little bit, so all of it may not be concentrated right on the roots. So I'm gonna let that saturate. I'm gonna come back. If I had a hose with a shower setting, that would be a different story. But with a bucket, you just wanna be slow when you're pouring it out. And the one last thing I'll say is, since I brought up the fact that it's summertime here, if you have an irrigation system or you have the consistency to water the first couple weeks on a regular basis, that's great. You can just about plant any time of the year, at least where I'm at. But fall is a great time to plant. It's less stressful on the plants, especially if you don't have an irrigation system or you're not going to be very consistent with watering, because any new plant in the ground, it's going to prefer to be watered probably once a day for the first couple weeks, and then you can kind of let Mother Nature jump in and you can kind of back off and maybe water every other day, every 2 days, and then let the natural rainfall, do the rest of the watering. The last thing I'd say is I've got a little bit of mulch here. If you have some mulch, you don't want to smother the plant, but if you can get a little mulch on top, mulch loves to hold moisture in, and so when it does rain, or when you water it, that mulch is gonna hold some moisture and just keep that plant moist around the surface. I think that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys stay tuned for the next video. Hope you learned something. Over and out.